Donald Trump has turned his attention to ending the Ukraine-Russia war. And so we've had a lot of developments in that space over about the past week that we need to cover. We need to see where do we see the trajectory going from here based on everything that's happened. So I think one of the first things that went down is Trump dropped to reporters a comment about wanting Ukraine's rare earths. So Ukraine is pretty rich in rare earth metals, which are something that we've talked about a lot on this channel actually as being important for new green tech specifically, like with solar panels and electric vehicles and battery technology. They're used in a lot, and right now we source a lot of rare earths from China and Russia. So it makes sense that Trump has a transactional interest in being able to get access to some of Ukraine's rare earths if he helps to broker a peace for the country. But after that, we learned that Trump got on a call with Putin unilaterally without talking to Zelensky about it first, without talking to any of the European leadership about it first, which to me shows that Trump is not working from a mindset of an alliance with Ukraine anymore.
Yeah, no, that is no longer his concern.
No.
Well, I mean, it never was his concern, but that it is no longer U.S. policy to look for that.
Yes.
Now that he is the one in power. Trump's efforts for peace by going to Putin unilaterally without talking to his European allies or Ukraine as a potential ally showcases that he is only viewing this, like you said, from a transactional perspective.
Yes.
There is no upholding of anything previously that existed going on in this peace process.
Exactly. He's trying to make that very clear. And of course, part of what makes that clear now is the announcement that he then made that he will be meeting with Vladimir Putin in Saudi Arabia to discuss the terms of the peace deal. Not only will no European leaders be invited, but Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also will not be invited.
And this is pretty devastating, right? So he comes out and reporters ask him directly, "Do you think that Putin genuinely wants peace?" And Trump's like, "Yes, I do. And then Zelensky says, like, he's lying. Like Zelensky says he's lying. Putin is a liar. He's lying to you. It's really tragic that Ukraine won't have a seat at that table. It's their war. It's their country. It's their people who've died. They should be the ones who are dictating that peace, not the United States. I mean, this reminds me of 1938 when Chamberlain makes a deal with Nazi Germany so that the Nazis can take over the Sudetenland inside of Czechoslovakia. And at that point, Czechoslovakia was not invited to the process of seceding their own territory. And that is what's happening now. Donald Trump has also stated, or Donald Trump's defense secretary, Hegseth, inside of Munich has already said that the 2014 Ukrainian borders will not be restored. I mean, that's going into a negotiation with your leg already cut off. He's already giving away a huge part of the game there. And that's for the Ukrainians to decide whether or not that their land gets ceded or not the United States. We made a deal with the Ukrainians with the Budapest Memorandum back in the 1990s. They gave up their nuclear arsenal for defense security from the United States. And all of that is just meaningless now. And it makes the United States a pariah in and of itself, saying, oh yeah, we'll fund your defense that we promised to give you, but you know what? Only if you give us your nation's wealth. Only if you agree to peace on our terms when we're ready for you to have peace.
Yeah, absolutely. But these are the new rules that the only credit I can give is it is clear. Right? Like it is clear that none of the past agreements mean anything anymore.
Nothing.
All these foreign leaders should be calculating, should be thinking about is what does Donald Trump think is in the best interests of the U.S.?
Yes. It has nothing to do with pieces of paper we've ever signed, nothing to do with the Senate, everything we've ever passed through the Senate. All that is irrelevant now. It's all up to Donald Trump's mind games here. And this is unfortunately where nationalism, where blatant nationalism will lead you, where, there is no longer any ideological commitment to a nation and defending nations for democratic purposes. That ideology is dead and it's gone. That international order is over. And now everything is transactional. Everything is transactional.
Is the strongest survive, the weak die.
Yeah.
I think I wrote down the invasion of the Sudetenland on these notes before we started talking, because where I see this playing out is that I see a ceasefire being signed. I see a deal being made, the war ending with Putin keeping probably every inch of territory the Russians have taken so far in Ukraine. I think Ukraine realizes, one, that it's going to lose U.S. support if it doesn't agree to these peace terms. Two, that Europe is not ready or cohesive enough to be able to support it in lieu of U.S. support. Mm-hmm. And that Putin, I think Putin is not done. I think Putin can't stop here, but I think he will love the opportunity to take this land without a fight for any longer.
Absolutely.
To take a year or two to recoup, and then to look towards the Baltics or to look towards Poland as he seeks to expand in a different place that doesn't fundamentally break the terms of the Ukrainian peace deal, because I don't believe that Donald Trump understands Russia's goals as needing to expand to the geographical barriers. Yes.
No, he has
that
no
enable
idea.
its security.
Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, they are in jeopardy now.
Yes.
And all of those nations are going to be increasing their military spending dramatically.
And yet their military spending is not going to overcome the loss of the U.S. basically pledging that it won't defend these countries when it comes down to it. For NATO's Article 5 to become meaningless because Donald Trump doesn't care about it.
Right. I mean, Donald Trump is, yes, the United States is basically already breaking a strong defensive commitment from the Budapest Memorandum. So, like, what is there to say that the United States won't break another one now?
Oh, I fully expect it.
Yeah. And so that is where Russia is now going to be able to gain the edge. What do you think? What do you say?
My concern, here's really my concern, is that Putin will argue that his next invasion, that it won't be in Ukraine. He'll wait even longer than like this administration to go further in Ukraine. And he'll argue that his next invasion doesn't break the specific terms set out in the peace in Ukraine, so it's okay that he did it. I think then it is a coin flip almost as to whether Trump is incensed enough by the fact that Putin has these balls to go invade another country, thinking that his Ukraine peace deal was supposed to prevent Putin from waging war anywhere else, that Trump decides that he's going to get militarily involved. That is my fear. My fear is that we have exactly the Sudetenland situation and exactly what followed.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening now. Putin is going to take his time. He's going to bide it. He's going to use it, and he's going to rebuild his military that has been devastated.
He's going to use the people in the new land that he has taken to fuel his military even more.
Yep. And then he's going to go someplace else. I mean, this is a guy he's invaded Georgia. He's invaded Ukraine. He's oppressed minorities within the nation. You think he won't stop? I just don't understand where the Trump administration is coming from. And I want to pivot now to the Europeans' response. The European Union's commissioner is devastated about this, and she's disgusted, quite frankly, that Europe and Ukraine are not included in this conversation. I just want to put this in perspective. Imagine a world where Canada invades us, okay, and then China and Russia and Canada are working together to figure out how to divvy up parts of the United States. Why would we be? Who would be okay with that? What people would accept that? You know, it's not good. It's not going to be a stable peace at all with Ukraine and Russia.
No, it's not good. But we are now in a world where nothing matters but the hard power realities on the ground.
Yeah, nothing matters but the size of your bank account and the number of bullets you got. Everything else is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Everything else is irrelevant. And Europe is learning that. So Europe is going to be spending a ton of money on their military.
Yeah.
If pro-European parties win in the upcoming elections over the course of the next 3 years, which I do not think they will, but if they do, Europe will become more centralized and work to better strengthen themselves as a defense for their defense. I do not expect that to happen. Because of the rise of nationalist sentiment, and Putin will eat their lunch. You know, Putin will totally have the opportunity to eat their lunch. I do think there's a path here for the ending of the Ukraine war to hurt the Russian economy pretty significantly, since so much of their economic spending now is driven by war industries. So many jobs, so many industries that are grown up out of nowhere because of the war. When the war ends, those industries will have to stop or slow down. Maybe they just continue to rearm, but I'm not totally convinced that the fiscal position of the country can both rebuild this Ukrainian part that they've conquered and fund a bunch of war industries. So I think that will hurt their economy in a little bit. But that's not, that's a small price to pay for being able to conquer, a quarter of a nation or something.
Yeah. Here's one other thing I want to throw out there and consider with specifically this meeting between Trump and Putin happening in Saudi Arabia. I am wondering if there might be implications for the global financial order here. I think Saudi Arabia's involvement is important. Obviously for oil. I think something that has hurt Russia, even though it hasn't completely crippled them throughout this war, is U.S. sanctions that were enabled by the fact that the world reserve currency is the U.S. dollar. I can imagine I imagine a Russia that wants the world to wean off of the dollar as the reserve currency so that it's not vulnerable to such sanctions in the future. I imagine a Donald Trump who sees the dominance and the reliance on the U.S. dollar of all of these other countries as something that weakens U.S. exporters' power, right? By strengthening the dollar. And this is why he's putting on tariffs. He wants more to be made in America. He says that all the time. Saudi Arabia can benefit because its oil is always priced in dollars, which is constantly depreciating because we were able to print the currency. We inflate it. I wonder if this could be the beginning of an agreement to shift away from the dollar to a more neutral reserve asset.
I don't think Trump is going to be okay with getting the dollar away from the reserve currency. I don't think he's even going to entertain that.
Okay.
I think with the whole BRICS situation and nations creating their own trade rules.
Yes.
He was pretty mad about that.
Yes.
So I don't think he is, and I also don't think he's short-sighted enough to think growing our GDP by an extra 0.2% from increased exports with a weaker dollar is going to be better for the nation than having the reserve currency of the world. I don't think he would make that trade-off.
Okay. I suppose the one place that my skepticism comes from is the Russian central bank, the Chinese central bank, central banks around the world are diversifying from the dollar, not into other currencies, but into gold more so. And so I wonder about how whether the dollar is on its way out eventually anyways, and Trump sees this as an opportunity to get favorable terms on the deal that sees it's fading. This is
a whole other topic, but yes, I see where
completely
you're
speculative.
Going.
It's just kind of part of where my mind has been at in other places besides just for this topic.
Do you think that Ukraine is going to get a fast track to European Union admission?
No. I think if anything, it will part of the agreement will be that Ukraine never joins NATO. It might also ban it from joining the EU for a few years.
We will find out. Oh my God. And Ukraine won't even get a decision in that process now.
Exactly.
That's insane to think about.
Yeah.
It's insane.
It is.
Who are we as a country that we're doing that? It's just, we are the baddies right now.
We are absolutely the bad guys. It is undeniable.
It's astounding.